Thanks for coming. My name is R. Grace Cummins. I'm the author of When Darla Hit and the owner of Ridley Brook Publishing in North Duxbury, Vermont. It's a small press. Last November, I was approached by two lovely and talented women who were working on a children's book called What Mess? I agreed to help them get their book published. The result is this wonderful, fun, and creative little gem that I'm holding in my hands. In addition to local libraries and bookstores, the book can be purchased online at kalaxcreations.com and at Candles and Creations in the Blue Mall on Dorset Street in South Burlington. I'm delighted to introduce to you the author and the illustrator, who together have already sold out most of their first printing. Many of you know them already. Please help me congratulate Jillian Kaplan and Caitlin Barr.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you guys all for coming. What a big turnout. Okay, I'm a little nervous, but here goes. I've had the opportunity to meet many wonderful children through my readings of What Mess. Recently, a very wise preschooler at the Williston Heartworks School asked me how old I was when I started writing. I was stumped by that question for a moment, because I started telling stories before I could write. I told stories to my parents, siblings, friends, parents' friends, and anyone who would listen. Later, I wrote my stories down on paper. I have always loved creative writing and continued writing through college. Then I went to law school. And I still wrote a lot, but the writing changed. Briefs, depositions, and legal arguments were a long way from the creative pieces I used to write. I continued writing in journals about my thoughts and feelings, but the creative stories stopped. After my son Alex was born, I started seeing the world through a child's eyes. Everything was so full of wonder and amazement. I tried to imagine how he was seeing things, and creativity returned. When my daughter Caitlin was born, less than 2 years later, I took some time off from my legal practice to stay home with my kids. With 2 kids under 2, 24/7, my creativity kicked in. I started my craft business, Kalax Creations, named for Caitlin and Alex, since they were my inspiration, and I tried to think of fun things to do with our time. One thing I couldn't get control over was the constant mess. Every time I cleaned up a room, another one was being made messy. I felt like it was impossible to keep up with the toys, laundry, diapers, cooking, cleaning, bed-making errands, all of the unpaid jobs that go along with being a mom. So I asked my kids to help with their rooms. Alex had the same general idea of clean that I did, but Caitlin was another story. At about 3 years old, she would pronounce her room all clean, but I wouldn't notice any difference. Time and again, I would end up cleaning her room for her. In no time, there was a mess again. I'd ask her to clean up, and 2 minutes later, she'd say, all clean. One day, I asked Caitlin to show me what she had cleaned up. She took my hand, led me to her room, and showed me 2 books she had put away. I was amazed. Clearly, we had different definitions of clean. I asked her what was going on with the rest of the stuff on her floor. With her dimpled baby hand, Caitlin pointed to each group of toys and told me, this is my cozy corner, this is my baby corner, this is my beauty corner, this is my dress-up corner, this is my book corner, and this is my craft corner. Her room only had 4 actual corners, but she had created areas for all of her important tasks. When I really listened to my daughter and didn't just hear her words, I understood that what looked like a mess to me was really a work in progress to her. I wrote What Mess 5 years ago as a tribute to Caitlin, and the idea that what constitutes a mess is really just a matter of perspective. I was ready to submit the manuscript to a publishing house when I learned that the publisher usually chooses their own illustrator, and authors and illustrators often don't communicate. I had a vision for my story and wanted the pictures to reflect my vision, so I waited. In the meantime, Jocelyn was born, and her room looked just like her sister's. My vision for my story now included Jocelyn and her favorite things. I met Caitlin Barr 4 years ago when I hired her to work for my business, Kalax Creations. She was a wonderful artist and so easy to work with. Over time, she got close with my family. She babysat for us and attended all the kids' parties, as well as major music, dance, and sporting events. We've supported charities together, and Caitlin even went to a concert with my Caitlin. She's become like a family member. Last spring, I shared some of my writing with Caitlin and told her the reason I hadn't sought a publisher yet. She asked if she could draw some sketches and came back with a cartoon of Jocelyn. I couldn't believe it. She drew exactly what I had imagined. I collaborated with her about my vision for the book, and she was enthusiastic about illustrating the book. Not only is she a fantastic artist, but because she knew my children, she was able to capture their personalities in her drawings. She was also able to somehow get into my mind and draw exactly what I was thinking. We've had a lot of fun creating this book, and we always sought the approval of our advisory panel, Alexander, Caitlin, and Jocelyn. If the kids didn't like a part of the story or an illustration, we threw it out. After all, we were writing a children's book. I also want to thank Caitlin for devoting hours of her time to this project when we both knew there were no guarantees of any sales. I'm so glad she believed in the story as much as I did. I'd also like to thank our publisher, Rose Cummins. She poured her heart and soul into What Mess, and the finished product reflects that. Thank you, Rose, for all of your love and support and for believing in us and our book. I'd like to thank Champlain for the use of their hall and for being an amazing place to work. I truly love my job here. I'd like to thank my parents, Audrey and Jeremy Bickwood, for their love and encouragement during this journey. I'd like to thank Cindy and Jim Barr for their belief in me and in this story. And a huge thank you to my parents and Caitlin's parents for hosting this party. Finally, I'd like to thank my family for being my sounding board and for listening to endless recitations of What Mess. I'd like to thank my husband, Robert, for helping me clean up all the messes in our life, and my children, Alexander, Caitlin, and Jocelyn, for providing me with insight and inspiration every day. Without you, there would be no story. I love you all.
I feel like I'm accepting an award on TV or something. So after I thank God and before I thank the Academy, in all seriousness, I want to thank Rose from Ridley Brook Publishing. She was wonderful to work with through this entire process. She was a great help in leading us through this endeavor. And if you've ever met her, you would realize that she's such a sweet woman. She was a pleasure to have guiding us, and I'm sure that she has made this book process a lot easier than it could have been. So thank you, Rose. My next obvious choice of who to thank would be Jill. Jill literally dropped this amazing opportunity on my lap. I've learned so much from her and was able to take on a project that I never would have dreamed of. She was great to work with and had so many positive contributions and ideas to bring to the table. Thank you, Jill. I want to thank Rob and the kids for being so supportive. They're so cute. They're so dead. Jossie, I want to thank, where are you, Jossie? I want to thank you for having a beautifully messy room. I was able to admire and refer to it in all of its glory frequently. I also want to thank Audrey, Jillian's mother, for enabling us to have this great party. To my family, Mom, Dad, Trevor, Ian, and my boyfriend, Alex, they are my backbone support system and encourage me in everything that I do. Thanks to my grandmother, Angela, and my Uncle Patrick for being a leading force in book sales. Thank you, friends and readers, all the little ones that I have worked with through babysitting and the art studio. I hope that you all enjoy this piece that we have worked so hard on. So thank you, everyone.